History often tells us about kings, emperors, and dynasties, but it rarely asks a more uncomfortable question. How does a nobody become someone powerful enough to bend an entire continent to his will? Not through inheritance, not through destiny written at birth, but through ambition, timing, and unshakable belief that the world can be taken if you are willing to reach for it. Before we begin, if you enjoy long-form historical storytelling that explores not just what happened, but why it mattered, consider subscribing. This is the story of how a nobody became master of Europe. Napoleon Bonaparte was born in 1769 on the island of Corsica, a rugged and defiant land recently absorbed into France. It was not Paris. It was not a center of power. It was a place most of Europe barely noticed. His family belonged to the minor nobility, a title that sounded impressive but carried little substance. They had no fortune to rely on, no powerful allies, no seat at the tables where futures were decided. Napoleon entered the world already on the margins. Corsica itself was divided, bitter, and restless. Napoleon grew up hearing stories of resistance, of struggle against foreign rule. In his earliest years, he did not dream of France. He dreamed of Corsican independence. But history rarely follows personal loyalty. It follows opportunity. When his father secured a military scholarship on the French mainland, Napoleon was sent away young, isolated, and unaware that this separation would shape the rest of his life. In France, Napoleon did not fit in. His accent marked him immediately. His manners felt provincial. His classmates, sons of wealthy aristocrats, mocked him openly. He was smaller, poorer, different, and in a society built on privilege, difference was unforgivable. Napoleon did not respond with charm or compromise. He responded by withdrawing. While others socialized, he studied. While others relied on family connections, he relied on books, history, mathematics, geography, military theory. He read about Alexander, about Caesar, about men who rose not because they were born powerful, but because they seized moments others failed to recognize. Napoleon began to believe that greatness was not inherited. It was constructed. There was nothing charismatic about him in these early years. No speeches, no grand gestures, only a quiet intensity. A sense that he was watching the world carefully, waiting. He did not yet know how. He did not yet know when. But Napoleon was already convinced of one thing. He was meant for more than the life he had been given. At this moment, Napoleon was still invisible to history. A minor officer, a foreign-sounding name in a rigid system. But France itself was about to collapse. And when the old world began to burn, men like Napoleon would discover that chaos creates ladders. The revolution had not yet begun, but the conditions for his rise were already in place. When the old world collapsed, France did not slide into change. It fell into it. The French Revolution did not begin as a clean break from the past. It began as chaos, fear, and uncertainty. Centuries of hierarchy collapsed almost overnight. Titles that once commanded respect became liabilities. Noble names that had opened every door now marked their owners for exile or execution. For the sons of privilege, the revolution was catastrophe. For those with nothing, it was something else entirely. Opportunity. Young officers watched their commanders disappear. Some fleeing the country, others dragged to the guillotine. The army did not dissolve, it transformed. Loyalty shifted away from kings and toward competence. Promotion no longer followed lineage, it followed results. Napoleon Bonaparte understood this instinctively. He did not romanticize the revolution. He did not chant slogans in the streets or argue philosophy in cafes. While others debated ideals, Napoleon observed structure. He studied what vanished, and more importantly, what replaced it. War would be constant. Leadership would be scarce. Vacancies would appear faster than they could be filled. In this new France, ambition had room to breathe. Many officers abandoned their posts, terrified by the speed of change. Napoleon stayed, not out of loyalty to the revolution, but out of clarity. He knew that chaos rewarded preparation, not hesitation. While Paris burned with political fervor, Napoleon returned to his books. He studied mathematics, fortifications, artillery angles, logistics. He was not preparing for speeches. He was preparing for inevitability. The army was becoming the spine of the new state, and Napoleon intended to place himself at its center. Outside the barracks, crowds roared and banners fell. Inside, cannons were cleaned, formations drilled, and calculations refined. Napoleon learned to see war not as glory, but as geometry. Space, timing, weight, and momentum. The revolution stripped France of its old leaders, but it also stripped away excuses. Failure could no longer hide behind birthright. Success could no longer be ignored. Napoleon did not yet command armies. He did not yet shape history, but he was positioning himself precisely where history would soon demand answers. When the moment arrived, France would not ask where he came from. It would ask what he could do, and Napoleon Bonaparte was ready to respond. The moment Napoleon had been preparing for arrived not with ceremony, but with desperation. In 1793, the port city of Toulon fell into rebellion. Royalists seized control and invited the British Navy into the harbor. For the young French Republic, this was more than a military threat. It was humiliation. France needed Toulon back, quickly. It needed a solution, not a debate. Napoleon Bonaparte arrived as a minor officer, young, unknown, and expendable. No one expected him to save the campaign. That was precisely why he could see clearly. While senior officers argued over authority and protocol, Napoleon studied the ground. He ignored politics and focused on geometry. The harbor was protected by fortifications, but above them rose high ground. If artillery could be placed there, the British fleet would be trapped. The idea was simple. The execution was brutal. Cannons were dragged uphill under fire. Men collapsed from exhaustion. Positions were taken inch by inch. When the guns finally opened fire, the harbor transformed. British ships burned. Supply lines collapsed. The fleet withdrew. Toulon fell. Napoleon did not win the battle alone, but he made it possible. For the first time, violence carried his signature. At 24, he was promoted to brigadier general. The Republic noticed him, but recognition in revolutionary France was unstable. Victories faded quickly. Alliances shifted overnight. Within months, Napoleon found himself back in Paris, unemployed, broke, and forgotten. The system he had just served no longer needed him. Then, in 1795, Paris erupted again. Royalist forces marched against the government. The streets filled with anger and fear. The Republic faced collapse from within. Napoleon was summoned not as a hero, but as a tool. He was given artillery and authority, little more. He did not hesitate. Cannons were positioned in narrow streets. When the mob advanced, grapeshot tore through the crowd. The rebellion ended in minutes. It was efficient. It was merciless, and it worked. Paris fell silent. The government survived, not because of speeches or ideals, but because force had been applied without restraint. Napoleon understood the lesson immediately. In revolutionary France, legitimacy did not come from birth or law. It came from the ability to restore order. Blood had secured his place. From that day forward, Napoleon Bonaparte was no longer merely an officer. He was a solution. And France, exhausted and afraid, had learned something dangerous. When chaos threatened to swallow the state, Napoleon knew exactly how to respond. When Napoleon was given command of the army of Italy, it did not look like a promotion. It looked like a dead end. The army he inherited was starving, unpaid, and demoralized. Soldiers lacked boots. Rifles were rusted. Desertion was common. Many officers saw Italy as a punishment posting. Far from Paris, far from power. Napoleon saw it differently. He understood something most generals did not. An army that has nothing left to lose can be transformed faster than an army that is comfortable. Before his first battle, he did not promise rest or safety. He promised victory, plunder, and glory. And then he moved. Napoleon abandoned the slow, traditional style of warfare. Instead of marching as a single mass, he split his forces, moved them rapidly through mountain passes, and struck enemy units before they could unite. Austrian commanders were stunned. They faced an enemy who seemed to appear everywhere at once. At Montenat, at Lodi, at Arcole, Napoleon attacked faster than his enemies could react. He forced battles on his own terms, choosing terrain, timing, and momentum with ruthless precision. Each victory fed the next. Each success rebuilt his army's confidence. The soldiers who once complained now worshipped him. Napoleon walked among them, shared their hardships, remembered names, and spoke directly. He made them feel seen. More importantly, he made them win. Within months, the impossible happened. A poorly supplied French army shattered larger, better equipped Austrian forces. Northern Italy collapsed under Napoleon's advance. Cities surrendered. Treasuries opened. Art, gold, and supplies flowed back to France. But Italy gave Napoleon more than wealth. It gave him belief. For the first time, he was no longer reacting to events. He was shaping them. He negotiated directly with kings and princes. He signed treaties without waiting for approval from Paris. He acted not like a general, but like a ruler in the making. France celebrated his victories. Newspapers printed his bulletins. Paintings depicted him as a modern Caesar. The myth was forming in real time. Napoleon understood the danger of this moment. Success on the battlefield meant little if political enemies in Paris erased him with a pen. So he did something radical. He began controlling the narrative. Reports exaggerated victories. Losses were minimized. Every battle became destiny fulfilled. Italy was no longer just a campaign. It was proof that Napoleon Bonaparte was different. By the time the campaign ended, Europe was paying attention. Kings feared him. Politicians envied him. The French government needed him, but also feared how much the public loved him, that nobody from Corsica had crossed a line. He was no longer rising. He had arrived. And now, standing at the height of his first legend, Napoleon looked beyond Italy, toward a gamble that would either elevate him above all rivals or destroy him completely. Italy made Napoleon famous. But fame was not enough. Victory on European soil still placed him beneath politicians in Paris. The Directory praised him, used him, and quietly feared him. Napoleon understood the truth. As long as he stayed in France, he could be promoted, sidelined, or destroyed at any moment. So he looked outward. Egypt was not chosen out of romance. It was chosen out of calculation. If Napoleon could cut Britain off from India, he would strike the heart of the most powerful empire on earth. And if he succeeded, he would no longer be just a general. He would become indispensable. In 1798, he sailed east. But this expedition was unlike any before it. Alongside soldiers came scientists, engineers, artists, and scholars. Napoleon did not want only territory. He wanted legacy. He wanted to be remembered not just as a conqueror, but as a civilizer, a modern Alexander. At first, the gamble worked. At the Battle of the Pyramids, Napoleon crushed the Mamluk forces with disciplined infantry squares. Cavalry charges broke against walls of steel and gunfire. And Napoleon delivered words that would echo through history. Soldiers were reminded that 40 centuries watched them from the pyramids above. It was theater, but it was effective. Egypt fell quickly. Cairo was taken. Napoleon appeared unstoppable. Then everything changed. The British Navy, commanded by Admiral Horatio Nelson, found the French fleet anchored at Aboukir Bay. In a devastating night battle, the French ships were annihilated. Napoleon was stranded. No reinforcements. No retreat. No easy way home. For the first time, Napoleon was cut off from the stage that mattered most. Egypt became a cage. He adapted with remarkable discipline. Administration was organized. Scientific work continued. Ancient ruins were mapped and studied. The Rosetta Stone was discovered. Napoleon kept order, maintained morale, and projected control. But beneath the surface, the campaign was rotting. Disease spread through the army. Local resistance grew violent. Supplies dwindled. And rumors from Europe whispered that France itself was unraveling. Napoleon faced a choice that would define him: stay and risk being forgotten in the desert, or leave and risk being called a coward. He chose to leave. In 1799, Napoleon quietly abandoned his army and returned to France. To critics, it was betrayal. To Napoleon, it was survival. He arrived back in Paris not as a failure, but as a mystery. News traveled slowly. The public still saw him as a hero. And France, exhausted by revolution and chaos, was desperate for someone who looked like control. Egypt had not made Napoleon greater, but it had revealed something essential. He was willing to gamble everything, including loyalty and reputation, if the prize was power. And France was about to offer him the greatest prize of all. When Napoleon returned from Egypt, France was barely holding together. The revolution had destroyed kings and nobles, but it had not created stability. The Directory ruled on paper, but in reality, it ruled through exhaustion, fear, and corruption. Prices soared. The army was unpaid. Politicians plotted constantly, more concerned with survival than governance. Napoleon sensed the weakness immediately. He did not present himself as a conqueror returning from abroad. He presented himself as a solution: calm, confident, certain. To politicians, he was a useful sword. To generals, a dangerous rival. To the public, something far rarer: a man who seemed to know what he was doing. Napoleon understood something crucial about power. It does not announce itself. It waits until everyone is too tired to resist. In November 1799, the opportunity arrived. Under the cover of legal reform and political maneuvering, Napoleon and his allies dismantled the Directory. The event later became known as the coup of 18 Brumaire. It was not heroic. There were no barricades, no street battles, no revolutionary crowds. France changed hands quietly, inside government chambers filled with confusion and intimidation. When the dust settled, a new system stood in place: the consulate. 3 men were meant to share authority. In reality, only one mattered. Napoleon Bonaparte became first consul. Once in power, he moved with relentless speed. Administration was reorganized. Tax collection was enforced. The currency was stabilized. Roads were repaired. Education was restructured to produce loyal officials and officers. For the first time in a decade, France functioned. Then came his most enduring achievement. The Napoleonic Code unified France's chaotic legal systems into one body of law. Equality before the law replaced aristocratic privilege. Merit replaced birth. Property rights were protected. Order replaced revolutionary improvisation. These reforms outlived his empire. But Napoleon was not content with being first consul. Titles meant less to him than permanence, and permanence required control. In 1802, he made himself consul for life. The move was popular. France, exhausted by instability, welcomed it. 2 years later, he went further. In 1804, Napoleon crowned himself emperor. Not because he loved ceremony, but because he understood symbolism. By placing the crown on his own head, he sent a clear message. His authority did not come from the church, not from nobility, not from revolution. It came from himself. Europe watched in alarm. A general could be tolerated. An emperor born from revolution could not. War was inevitable, and Napoleon was ready. Napoleon did not crown himself emperor for ceremony. He did it because he understood Europe. Kings respected crowns, not generals. And once crowned, they would be forced to confront him not as a rebel, but as an equal. Europe responded exactly as he expected. Austria rearmed. Russia mobilized. Britain funded coalitions from the shadows. War returned, larger and more organized than ever before. Napoleon welcomed it. The Grande Armée was no ordinary force. It was divided into independent corps, each capable of fighting alone, yet designed to converge at decisive moments. This allowed Napoleon to move faster than enemy intelligence could react. Armies that relied on rigid formations found themselves outmaneuvered before battle even began. In 1805, Napoleon marched east with breathtaking speed. While enemies still planned, he moved. While diplomats argued, he crossed borders. The campaign culminated near the village of Austerlitz. Napoleon deliberately weakened his right flank, allowing the enemy to believe they had found his weakness. As Austrian and Russian forces committed to the attack, Napoleon waited. Then he struck the center with overwhelming force, splitting the Allied army in half. The battle was over in hours. 2 emperors were defeated. An entire coalition collapsed. The consequences were historic. The Holy Roman Empire, which had existed for over 1,000 years, was dissolved. German states were reorganized under French influence. Europe's political map was rewritten by one man's calculations. Prussia believed itself different. It was not. In 1806, Prussian forces were crushed at Jena and Auerstedt in a single day. An army once feared across Europe ceased to exist as a meaningful power. Berlin fell. Prussia was humiliated. Napoleon stood at the height of his power. He installed relatives on thrones. He dictated treaties. He decided which nations would rise and which would vanish. But power gained through constant victory carries a hidden cost. An empire built on momentum must keep moving. And with every new conquest, resistance grew quieter, deeper, and more dangerous. By the end of the decade, Napoleon ruled most of Europe. But ruling territory was not the same as controlling loyalty. Britain remained undefeated. Its navy dominated the seas, immune to invasion. Unable to strike directly, Napoleon chose economic warfare instead. The continental system was designed to isolate Britain by closing European ports to British trade. On paper, it was devastating. In reality, it damaged Europe more than its enemy. Merchants suffered. Ports declined. Smuggling flourished. Allies obeyed only under pressure. Pressure turned into force. Spain was the first to break. When Napoleon removed the Spanish king and placed his brother on the throne, the country erupted. What followed was not traditional war. It was resistance without armies. Civilians attacked supply lines. Officials were assassinated. French soldiers were killed slowly, relentlessly. Napoleon underestimated it. British forces entered the peninsula, supporting the resistance. Resources drained away. Veteran troops were tied down in an endless struggle that produced no decisive victory. For the first time, Napoleon was bleeding power without gaining ground. Then came Russia. The alliance with the Tsar had always been fragile, built on convenience rather than trust. When Russia broke from the continental system, Napoleon saw defiance where compromise was still possible. He chose force. In 1812, Napoleon assembled the largest army Europe had ever seen. Hundreds of thousands marched east, drawn from across the empire. Veterans believed in another decisive campaign. Young conscripts believed in Napoleon himself. Russia refused to fight. Its armies retreated. Villages were burned. Fields destroyed. Supplies vanished. Napoleon pressed forward anyway. He had always won by audacity, by speed, by refusal to hesitate. This time, those same instincts carried him deeper into emptiness. Moscow lay ahead. The campaign was not yet lost. The empire still stood. The crown still shone. But the moment Napoleon chose invasion over restraint, he crossed a line that history would never allow him to step back across. The fall had not begun, but the path toward it was now unavoidable.